So, dear friends, it's my pleasure to welcome a tech veteran who hardly needs any introduction in India. Umang Bedi, who is co founder of the largest local language content platform in the country, Daily Hunt, has held several senior leadership positions in his illustrious career. These include his roles as MD of Facebook India and South Asia, MD of Adobe South Asia, and MD of India and Emerging Markets at Intuit Inc. Daily Hunt, as we know, is part of Bengaluru-based Versa Innovation, which completed slightly over $100 million round of funding in December 2020 from Alpha Wave, which is a unit of Falcon Edge Capital, Google, and Microsoft, and of course, its existing investors, Sofina Group and Lupa Systems. Now, this has raised the company's value to over $1 billion, making it a much envied unicorn. So congratulations once again on the order, Umang. Uh,
Thanks,
and
Leslie. Really appreciate it. Just one quick clarification. Versa Innovation, which is our parent company, is as you know, a tech platform company that, like you rightly said, powers Daily Hunt, the local language, the largest local language content destination serving over 300 million local language users, but also is directly responsible for Josh. And very quickly after the 100 million that you talked about, we did raise another 100 million from Qatar Investment Authorities and Gladebrook partners, taking the company's valuation well into a large multi-billion dollar company. And a large part of that, or that capital, was largely raised for Josh, which is now our India's leading and fastest growing short video app. So I just wanted to add that in.
no, no,
I
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much for that additional information. And so you have been at the helm of many billion-dollar global companies. Now you're heading an India-based unicorn where you first joined as a professional, but now are an entrepreneur, if I must say that. So has this changed your approach to business and strategy?
So, I think when you think about global multinationals that I've worked with, they're fantastic businesses, they're great companies. Each of them is very well regarded. But most of the time, the issues that I see, or the differences that I see in those roles, is one, you have a very large safety net within your corporate brand. Two, you have very little control over the product, because the products are largely created for global audiences out of headquarters. And three, the India businesses for most multinationals are usually go to market engines. So it does give you a lot of prowess to go and build businesses, focused on India, but they're largely go to market operations. The journey as an entrepreneur, on the other hand, is very, very different. Firstly, I think the biggest difference for me is to have a co-brother, Viru, who's my brother in arms, partner in crime. We are war brothers, and to have a partner who you can trust, have the deepest professional and personal relationship with, have a complete intellectual honesty, is a very, very big difference from the world that I come from. I think the second key business about entrepreneurship is about doing more with less. You're always going to have limited resources. You're always going to have limited capital, and limited every single bit of resources that you can think of, whether it's capital, whether it's marketing, whether it's people, whether it's costs. And so you got to start delivering a lot more impact with less, which allows you or forces you to ruthlessly prioritize on the core things that matter. So I would say that's a very big key second difference. The third difference, which is truly liberating, is that you control your own destiny from the point of view of a product and an offering. You you control the end-to-end roadmap of how your offerings could look like. You control the end-to-end strategy of how you want to grow the company. You control the entire destiny around how you want to raise capital and create stakeholder value for your investors, for your shareholders, for your employees and your customers and business partners. So it's far more liberating, and a lot more fun. I think the fourth difference, which is very humbling, is that at the end of the month, you always have to have enough capital as a runway, right? And so you have that responsibility of a large team, of ensuring they're kept happy. And I think that responsibility lies onto Viru and onto my shoulders jointly. And I think that that's very humbling in its own way, because valuations at any point of time are just a reflection of a particular value of a business, but there is a human factor of people, and you feel far more directly responsible without that safety net. So I think all in all, those are the big differences. You still continue to think long term. You still continue to invest ahead of the curve. You still continue to build long term value, but with the control of the entire product strategy, with limited resources, focusing on impact and hence ruthlessly prioritizing, and ultimately having a very rewarding yet a very humbling uh, kind of journey. But best decision of my life. I regret doing it at 40. I wish I'd done it 10 years earlier.
Yeah, but now you're getting to shape your own destiny, as they say.
Yes, absolutely. I'm loving that.
So here, I mean, obviously, when you're with a multinational, typically it's a kind of a shareholder kind of pressure out there. Here you have the investor kind of pressure. But more than that, at some point in times, especially when it comes to a unicorn, in India, we have people taking a critical look and saying, okay, fine, this is just a valuation game. We are just, the revenue and the profits don't match up to the expectations kind of stuff.
So, my reaction to that, Leslie, is that there are two kinds of businesses in India, and there are two kinds of founders, and there are two types of investors, and there are two types of directions that I see in the market. In the specific list of unicorns that you talked about, and there are over, close to 3 dozen unicorns, 2 or 3 dozen unicorns today. There are a lot of businesses which are really, really solid, are generating cash, are getting to break even, if not breaking even, and these are businesses in search of a valuation. And what I mean by that is they could be a lot larger in terms of value. And I see a lot of businesses that are pure valuations in search of a business or a business model, right? And I think I'm being as open as I can in this statement. I struggle with the latter. I believe more in the former. I think in my mind, there are two kinds of businesses. If you are a business that is a great product, it's growing virally, people come back and spend hours every day, or they use the product organically. It's all being driven by word of mouth. You have virtually zero to no marketing expense. You know what? It's awesome to then just ride the user growth and the engagement growth journey. And I don't mind those businesses not generating any revenue, right? Because they're just such awesome product experiences. A great example is what you and I live on WhatsApp, right? It's a great business. It ultimately was bought by Facebook for close to $20 billion. It is a viral app. They spend zero in marketing. It's a small team. It's never generated revenue, but it's a $20 billion valued business when it was bought over, right? That was 6 years
Yeah.
ago. And that's a great business. However, what I see most of the time are companies that are creating products. They're not viral. They're burning a whole lot of capital to try and get people to come and download and adopt it. They have a very leaky bucket, because of which retention is very, very low, and they're not generating any revenue or any cash or any such metric. I worry about these businesses because it's perfectly okay to not be revenue generating. I think revenue can always come later in a digital business, but then the core unit economics of customer acquisition, of lifetime value, of retention need to look really, really stellar. So I am more pessimistic about those businesses and their long runs, because they're riding a wave of a investor sentiment. And right now, as we know, capital markets are flushed. The US is printing money, and there is a lot of liquidity. Even banks in India don't know how to deploy that liquidity. And so I think overall, I'm a bigger fan of businesses that are real, that have got real tech moats, real on ground moats, are on a path to generating revenue or a path to profitability, and are showing the right unit economics, the right economic metrics. Sure, they're burning some capital, they're spending money on marketing. That's fine, right? But I think these are more sustainable, built to last kind of businesses versus the latter. So that's just my opinion on it.
Fair enough. It's an interesting perspective. That said, so how would you explain your business model? Because you have a content split between revenue guys with news providers, and that, of course, is a jamboree that creates a lot of problems. Worldwide, we are having those kind of problems around the news provider. But if you were to just explain your business model in the sense, like how does it work?
Our business model is actually amongst the simplest on the planet. Versa Innovation, as I said, is a tech platform company that's in the world of producing algorithms, right? We produce algorithms and power, India's largest local language content app, which is Daily Hunt, right? Now, what I understand from how it works is very simple. Daily Hunt has licensed relationships with all publishers for its content, right? And it has a large user base that comes and spends time. It creates advertising inventory, and Versa Innovation actually sells that inventory and makes revenue, which is passed back to the publisher. So it's a very fulfilling flywheel. With Josh, we're on that journey as well. We have a large number of content creators on the platform across large top of the line influencers, KOLs, macro and nano creators, community creators, and they're creating content. And as we start monetizing and building more revenue streams across it, we keep sharing back revenue back with the creators. So it's a very self-fulfilling business model. The company is already generating over 140 to 150 million dollars of ARR every year, and which is growing by more than 50%. So overall, a very solid business with a core business model.
And how the strategy working out for you? Because you're growing organically, and plus you're making acquisitions. So I think you made two acquisitions. Correct me if I'm wrong. Webler and Cogniral. One in the video space, and the other in the AI space. How do you draw these synergies from a strategy point of view?
Our strategy is very simple. We want to own the mind share, the time share, and the revenue share of all local language audiences across a family of apps. In the next 4 years, when the internet has 1 billion people, we want at least close to 1 billion to be using one of the couple of apps that we will launch. We already have two, there'll be a couple of more coming out into the future, and at least 500 million people coming back every day that we monetize and spending over 2.5 hours of time across this family of apps. So that's the overarching strategy. In terms of acquisitions, these acquisitions are made in terms of areas that enhance value to the business. So in terms of Webler, a very small but very young, talented team came on board, and Sahil, who was the founder, now leads the entire creation and the camera on Josh, right? Is a very young millennial product head who understands that audience, is a creator himself, and is kind of leading that entire journey. Cogniral was an exceptional leader with Ram Prakash, who'd spent over 20 years dedicating his life into a very deep AI-led understanding of local language content and local languages. He's also a linguist. And him coming in and building out our entire AI labs, which we already were on a journey on, but now he has turbocharged that journey, is really going to provide the right set of algorithms towards these family of apps to power the content personalization and content discovery journey. So the acquisitions that we've done till now, and the ones that you referenced, are more around skill enhancements versus getting into new markets or getting into new products. We haven't really done those up till now.
Would you like to expand a bit on this AI labs part of it? I find it pretty exciting for the startup to have an whole, the focus on AI, obviously, because you are in that entire space all the same.
So when it comes to AI, I would like to believe that we are at the cutting edge of probably having built the gold standard when it comes to artificial intelligence on local language content across formats. We today run a data set on AI which is over 6 to 7 petabytes, which is growing by over 8 to 10 terabytes every day.
Wow.
Essentially, what we do is we have our learning models being trained on over 250 million pieces of content across audio, video, imagery, and text across 14 local languages. We ingest this content all onto our platform. So all the content resides on our platform. And then we have 80 plus proprietary AI ML tech models that run to understand the content and the context. So essentially, we understand whether it's the content is in a certain language. We look for adjacencies of keywords to understand genre. We then understand micro genre. So we can understand this is in technology. In technology, for instance, it's gadgets and gadgets, it's mobile phones and mobile phones. It's maybe making a comparison of three players. We can then look at social media embeds in those posts. If there is a video, we open up the video, break it up by frames to understand the content. We isolate the audio and we run it across different logmel spectrum analysis to look for pattern recognition in terms of what it's saying. We look for voice to speech conversions to really understand that language, and we pick up keywords. We look at the content and check whether it's safe for viewability. We do that with images as well. And all in all, when one piece of content is ingested, there is like a multi-tiered level of knowledge that is developed on that content across a taxonomy that is then generated with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tags describing that content. On the other hand, when a user comes on to using the app, we don't force the user to log in. He or she can just start consuming content. But basis how that anonymous ID consumes content in terms of the way he or she scrolls, the way they spend time, what is their click-through rate, their likes, dislikes, their shares, their comments. We then have the ability to understand what type of content they like to consume from whom at what time of day. And the AI basically makes the decision of marrying the supply with the demand, which is the supply of content, from those genres, from those types, to the kind of implicit preferences that the user has, that we are deriving from the user's behavior, or any explicit signals that he has given us. For instance, I could be following astrology, or I could be following Faisu as a creator on Josh, so I want to see more Faisu content. So using those signals, the decision making is done there. So AI plays a role really in three parts. One is understanding the content and the context. Two is understanding the behavior, and both implicit and explicit. And three, the decisioning by which you marry the supply with the demand to create a very personalized, meaningful feed for each of those hundreds of millions of users who use the product.
Thank you. That was quite a detailed explanation, much more than I bargained for. But
Okay.
thank you very much, all the same. In this specific context, what's your overall long-term vision for vernacular content in India? This is a kind of a broader question.
So I think the long-term vision is very simple. When you look around the world, barring China, there are no markets where large multi-billion dollar tech digital media businesses have been created, because in most of or all of those markets, the duopoly of the global tech giants dominate. They dominate the time spent and they dominate the monetization. Our belief is that the internet is going to mirror traditional media consumption behaviors. Today in India, there are a billion people, a billion point three. Over a billion of them consume television media. Non-English is almost 90% of the consumption. If I take Hindi aside, which is nearly, the remaining half of around 40%,
Yeah.
50% is regional language consumption. So when I refer to regional languages, it's To me, it's Hindi and those
Yeah.
languages combined. We think that behavior is already starting to show on the internet. The internet has 600, 550 million active users today, about 250 million who consume content in English, a little more than 300, 350 million in local languages. 9 of the 10 new users that come online every day are local language audiences. By the time the internet has a billion users, about 750 million will be local language users, so three-fourths, right? And that's the area that we want to serve. And that doesn't mean we won't serve English. As you know, English is a content choice on our platform, but English is largely used as a dual language, right? Like I could be reading or watching Malayalam videos and English, or reading Telugu and English. It's almost like an and function there. The audience's consumption behaviors, right? Even if I think about myself, I can speak in English, but when I really want to relax, I want to watch a Bollywood movie, right? Because it's my language. It's, Hindi is my language there. So that's true for the Malayalis, it's true for the Maharashtrians, it's true for all of us, that we're very comfortable in our local languages. And so we think that that's a behavior we want to reward. We want to serve that 750, 800 million plus population, and literally own their mind share, their time share, and their revenue share across a family of apps, two of which are live. You'll see a few more coming out in the very near future, and more. And really create a large multi-billion-dollar company in a market where the duopoly are present. But we believe that we have a very detailed understanding of serving Bharat, of understanding audiences, of understanding content, and a wide history and legacy of doing that. And we feel that that's our long-term vision: really spur the local language creator community across organizations, professionally generated content creators, individual content creators, influencers, KOLs, and UGC. So really fuel that ecosystem, and then really match it up with the demand, and build a really large tech platform-based business that is a credible third front to the duopoly in our country.
Fair enough. But what about the smaller competitors in this space? They also are growing at a fast clip in that sense because the market is huge. Uh,
The market is massive, and one is, I'm a big fan of Indian tech entrepreneurs that are growing. I love the fact that so many young engineers want to build companies and not be in the safety net of a job, because that's easy. What they're doing is very brave. Huge respect for the community, and I learn from the community every day. There's so much reverse mentoring that we get every day. I think what I have realized in the long run, having seen a lot of up cycles and down cycles in the last 22 years, I almost feel like a dinosaur now, compared to some of the youngsters that I work with. But real businesses are built on three fundamental rights to win, no matter what business you are in. One, you have ability to attract a large audience, right? Two, you have the ability to engage that audience and have that audience retained and coming back. And three, you have the ability to monetize that audience, whether it's through advertising, commerce, subscription models, so on and so forth, right? What I've seen is there's a large market, but it's also a market that demonstrates a winner takes all characteristic. And essentially, what companies struggle with is the three rights to win, which is around what I described: getting that audience, retaining them, and most importantly, monetizing them, which is really, really hard. And very few and far between have ever proved that use case, no matter what the business model is, right? And I think that's the struggle. But when you look at India, across any sector, when you look at data, Jio and Airtel dominate. They own over 70% market share. When you look at handsets, Oppo, Vivo, which is one company, Oppo, Vivo, OnePlus, and Xiaomi, Samsung, just three of these players have 80% market share, right? When you look at automobiles, Maruti and Hyundai have 70% market share. When you look at any business, right? The top two or three players have 70 to
yeah.
80% market share. So I think the market's large enough for two or three players, definitely. Who those will be, time will tell. We like to believe that we would be one amongst them in terms of the last man standing. But I believe it's going to require very fast execution, core moats on the business, real business models for those businesses to actually compete and succeed in the long run.
Yeah, and I think what is helping you is that your investors share your optimism in the space.
Yeah,
So,
I think one thing which is a huge boon is the variety and the depth on our cap table. I'd like to think of our cap table as probably amongst the most stellar, one amongst the most stellar in the industry, because we have the large venture capital funds, Sequoia, Matrix, Omidyar, Falcon Edge, Goldman Sachs, Glade Brooks, James Rupert Murdoch's Lupa Ventures. Then we have the strategics with Google, Microsoft, and so on. And then we have the large sovereign wealth funds with ADQ via AlphaWave and Qatar Investment Authority. So it's a very stellar, and Sofina, sorry. And VCAP, sorry, I forgot. So it's a very sophisticated, very diverse, and a very, high global marquee capital that has backed us. And so it's a huge testament to the business. And I think the leadership team that Viru and I are blessed to have, who drive the core outcomes along with all the employees every day.
so we have about, as we discussed earlier before when we started the interview, that we have about 35, 40 tech unicorns in India. What more can be done to make it a more conducive atmosphere? I mean, obviously, the mere fact that we have these 35, 40 tech unicorns means that we do have there's a clear kind of push, whether it's NASSCOM, whether it's the Indian government, the 10,000 startups, and so many other initiatives. What more can be done?
I think what can be done, there's a lot that can be done, but I think
Clearly.
the largest help that we can do is encourage entrepreneurship right into our education system. We don't do that. I remember the distinct for me was you finish school, you finish college, you get a job, right? Like that's the mold that we went through. And it's almost like when I went to Surat for the first time in fifth standard, got out of Surat railway station, and there was a huge board which said "Naukri chodo vyapar karo," right? Which just tells you the DNA of the Gujarati community. So I think that entrepreneurship needs to be encouraged right from early on. That's one. It's a change in mindset, because you need to not be punitive towards failure, because as an entrepreneur you are going to fail, so you need to be able to celebrate failure, learn from it, and encourage it. It's important to fail, but fail fast. The second thing, and this is more philosophical, right, like right from the grassroots of where we come from, the second thing is we really need to start thinking about how we develop great product companies out of India, right? I mean, we've had that wave of amazing services companies. Look at Infosys, look
Yeah.
at Wipro, look at TCS, Mahindra's. But you really haven't had really awesome product companies coming out of India. And that, again, is frameworks for innovation that need to be built and encouraged at all levels, right from school to college to innovation mechanisms across the industry. The third thing that I would say is one needs to have the ability to get access to Indian capital. It's a little bit of a shame that all the unicorns have been built out of foreign capital, whereas there is so much Indian capital being deployed into public markets. And I think there has to be an impetus for Indian funds to really start, winning in this in the private market space as well. So I think those are the top three things that I would say we should be encouraging and doing.
Is it that Indian investors do not believe enough in Indian entrepreneurs?
No, I don't think they've looked at this as an asset class yet. So, you couldn't argue that Sachin and Binny weren't amongst the best entrepreneurs that India has produced, right? But when you look at it, with all the success with the sale to Walmart, all the capital actually left India, barring what was left with the founders and the employees, right? Because there really wasn't any meaningfully large, bank or fund that had come into Flipkart, right? And so I think there is an opportunity there to fuel the ecosystem with a lot more Indian capital, because private markets are definitely rewarding returns, as we have seen as well.
One final question. Since we have been speaking so much about AI is a very integral part of your entire company as such, and is the driving force. I dare say that. Um do you see India becoming an AI superpower? The reason I'm asking this question is because I see it more in the application space, rather because it does not have semiconductors, it does not have anything. So to compete with the likes of, say, China, the US, or the UK, the sense that some we get is that, okay, probably India may become a AI superpower in the application space, and perhaps it may be too ambitious to just talk about AI as a superpower in the broader context. Would that be a fair question?
So I definitely hope that we go down that direction. I feel it's more of a dream or a hope right now. A lot more needs to be done. Um, we do have some amount of the best engineering talent in the world, but it's not talent that's really delivered great, outstanding products. Um, it's talent that is being used around delivering great services. Yet, and I'm not discounting. We're a product company, so I'm not saying we're bad. All I'm saying is, if I look at it and if I zoom out at an ecosystem level, I think to even become an AI superpower on applications, we've got to start creating awesome product offerings. And a lot of the offerings here cannot really stamp that authority. Like, how many tech products out of India, pure consumer products, are global phenomena, right? There are not too many that I can think of, right? Whereas there are American companies, there are French companies, there are Chinese companies that have enjoyed, that dominance. So I really feel, sure, we could probably do it in services. I'm not discounting that, but I truly feel to do this in products, we have a long way to go. We just need to nurture that whole ecosystem very differently, and give it access to Indian capital.
So, Umang, once again, thank you very much for your time. Always been a pleasure talking to you as usual, and wish you all the best. As now you're the unicorn, hope you get into the multi-billion dollar kind of space in the startups. And there are so many definitions of much beyond unicorns, as they say. And wish you all the best on your journey. Thank you
Thank,
again for your time.
thank you very much, Leslie. Appreciate it.